That's when I said, here goes that. But I mean, I do it, all of these different societies. Ain't that a couple of them? It's okay. Yes. I mean, ours works.
Does it work? Is it plugged in? Or?
No, I think it works off battery.
If you got plugged into the.
We never had it. Oh,
Yeah, I guess it is. For me, I already plugged in. Maybe is that it right there? Or is that your keyboard?
This is my keyboard. This I don't know what this is.
That's logistics, isn't it? Yeah, that
Yes,
could be it.
it says it just, okay, it might be it there.
Hard to take. Yeah. Have to play with that.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
What type of battery is it? Triple A. Juanita and Faison.
No, sir. I gave out your own pen. Bring your own pen.
The city is on a budget.
Exactly. Did y'all approve it in your little budget for supplies?
Look on your damn
Look under the council tab.
Is it in the
Look under
supplemental?
the council tab and see if y'all have other
Go
operations.
ahead and look in there.
I might have to leave to go get my stuff from next
Page 54, line item 32.
Yeah, hotel, motel.
That is our page. I know that page. I know that page. I'll let you know.
water at 621. Excuse me. Special call meeting for council workshop, budget workshop. We have Mr. Buckley, Mr. Roscoe Ward, and Ms. David present. Tonight, Rachel Hall will not be here. She has a prior commitment. Graham McWaters, he will not be here. He also had a prior, commitment. And I think Scott has scheduled meetings with them like Monday and Tuesday to go over what we're going over tonight. And by that way, next Tuesday we'll all pretty much be on the same page. But I like for Mr. Wearies to lead us in prayer, and Mr. Buckley to do the flags for Warwick. He knows all.
Father God, we come once again, Lord, just to tell you thank you. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for another day. We just thank you, Lord, for just being God in our life day by day. Lord, I want to thank you, Lord, for life, health, and strength. Lord, I want to thank you, Lord, for each one that is represented here on tonight, Lord. Bless them and bless the families, Lord, and just keep us all close. Lord, just bless our city, Lord, and Lord, just know, Lord, that we're here to do whatever is to be done, Lord, to make our city run straight and everything else, Lord. Just make sure that it's done under your will, Lord, because, Lord, without you, there's nothing we can do. Lord, bless each member one by one, each council member, each department head, each the one that works in each department. And Lord, just bless our city manager and bless everyone around us, Lord. Just keep us, Lord. Lord, let this meeting be done, Lord, in your word, Lord, done the way that you would have it be done, Lord, decent and in order, Lord. And Lord, the ones that presented, Lord, just be with them right now, Lord. And Lord, we be able to give your name praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take the flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, item number 3, approve public hearing date on proposed tax rate, year 2025.
Mayor and council, so one of the things that we're required to do through the state legislation and through the different requirements is set the council date for our public hearing. And so we have on our budget calendar that we've adopted, that date is set for September 17th, which is our regular council meeting. In September, we will have the public hearing of the tax rate, and we will also adopt the tax rate at those times on September 17th. So we just need to approve that, and then we will be putting notices in the paper for the process and everything following.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to that date be changed?
What's that?
That date be changed if we do the council meeting?
We can.
We're going to add a last one to do the item to be the September meeting, the week before. That's possible.
Okay. And we know if we want to.
That's all right.
Well, he's not going to be here.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't believe they will be here.
You want to look at the calendar?
I'm just looking
I
up.
know the legislation has certain requirements. And
You have to get to set the date so many days before, and
Yeah.
it's.
Do you have that legislation in front of you?
I got a calendar.
And, I mean, yeah, we just be able to prove, at that point, it's the public hearing for the tax rate, and then we'll set that's the council meeting, then we set all the dates and everything, so, by that point, we should be pretty much through here Tuesday. Yeah, hopefully.
Make a motion, we approve the tax day
The public hearing for the tax rate.
tax day.
Can that be for 17 next Tuesday?
17 next year.
No, September 7th.
September 17th.
September 7th. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Buckley. Second by Mr. Ward. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries 3-0. Okay, item number 4. Discussion regarding the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 city budget. Before Scott goes to work on this, I just want to thank the entire staff. I mean, they put in a lot of work in on this. And I sit through a meeting or two, and after about 30 minutes, my head starts spinning. So I don't see how they do it. But I just, they do a good job. And it's a lot of stuff involved in it. A lot of ifs. And we still got ifs. So that's just, I just want us to try to do the best we can with what we have. Okay, Scott, go ahead.
Well, and we're going to start off with our Budget 101. So just a real brief, quick review of what a budget is, what the different funds are, just kind of remind you and those that are watching kind of what the different funds and budgets are, how it's broken down, how we kind of build it, develop it, how we set the tax rate, just kind of give you that information, and then we'll get into the actual budget.
Good evening. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over basic budget 101. The city has the authority and responsibility to ask financial questions. You guys must have access to financial data at all times. I've said multiple times before that we're always available to talk and meet and answer any questions that y'all may have. The city manager, Scott, is the liaison between city council and the department heads and staff. If we have any questions, we take them to Scott, and then Scott comes to you guys and presents the information to y'all. My department's responsibility is to ensure that the information is accurate and correct and presented in accordance with GASB and GAAP rules. And the department head's responsibility is to request the needs for their department. What is a budget? It's a budget is like any other budget. It's a financial operating plan. It's the revenues that come in and the allocation to the different departments for their needs. The city has a fund accounting, and what that is, we have different funds within our accounting system. The largest is the water and sewer and general fund. We also have the debt service fund that we pay our bond payments out of, and we have unity committee. We have the TERS funds for those allocations, as well as hotel, motel, and capital equipment. So our governmental funds are, like I said, the public safety, development services, recreation, admin, pretty much everything, all the operations of the city. The proprietary funds operates for profit, and that would be our water and sewer department. And here's a list of all the funds within the city, that I just basically went over. And we have different sources of revenue. Our top revenue sources are sales tax, property tax, licenses and permitting for, that we collect from development fees, development services, and then we have our rates, fees, and charges for different uses like civic center, council park, those different things, library fees, they're all under our rates and fees. And this is just a breakdown of where the money goes that we receive. Our sales tax, property tax, franchise fees, permits and licenses, rates, fees, and charges go into our general fund. Debt service gets a portion of our property tax. And then the utility fund collects the revenue for the water and sewer services. I actually like this slide. It breaks down how a dollar in sales tax revenue, how it's broken down. The state gets 6.25%, general fund, which is our operator, gets 1.25. Of that 1.25, 0.25% is property tax relief. And I might get into that later, but Liberty County gets 0.5%, and then the EDC is funded with 0.25%. Different expenditures in the city. This is just a chart showing how the different expenses are, the different departments, the funds are allocated. This is not like precise, exact, but public safety, as you can see, takes up the majority of it. You have public works, parks and recreation, economic development, general government. And then we have different types of expenditures. We have recurring expenditures, and we also have one-time. Recurrent expenditures are things that are ongoing that we will always have to pay for, such as personnel, operating costs, just the everyday, day-to-day. And then the one-time expenditures are usually your capital purchases. Okay, so the fund balance is, I like to refer to it, just so people understand, is basically the city savings account. It's the money we budget every year for revenues, the projected revenues and the estimated expenses, and the fund balance either increases or decreases based on what we actually spend. So if we budget $1 million in revenue, $1 million in expenses, and we only spend $800,000 in expenses, then that $200,000 goes into our fund balance. We have to, our charter requires that we maintain a fund balance of 3 months of operating. So each year that amount changes based on our budget. So whatever our budget is, we take that, multiply it by 25%, and that's what we have to, it's money that we cannot utilize, we cannot spend it. We have to keep it just in case of an emergency, where that the city can continue operations for at least 3 months. And some of the items that we have budgeted are one-time expenses. I said some of our expenses are recurring, some of them are one-time. And the one-time expenses are, you can use fund balance to fund those expenses. Fund balance cannot be used for recurring expenses. Frequently asked questions. When does the budget process start? As early as possible, but between March and April. It is a long and tedious process, and we do our best to stay on track with everything. The legislation does have specific guidelines. Our fiscal year is October 1 through September 30th, and we start in March with meeting with the department heads and looking at our projections for the year to see where we're going to end the current budget year, to see what we need for next year. The department heads submit their requests to finance, and Scott and I sit down and review them. We review them. Scott and I review them, and then we also review with the department heads and our accountant. And then proposed budget is submitted by the end of July, beginning of August, depending on the legislative date requirement. What happens after, the city manager submits a budget? Tonight, we have a workshop. We, meet with the city council to discuss what we've, come up with. We work with the, like I said, we work with the department heads to see what their needs are and to see what we can fund. We work together to try to figure out the tax rate, because the tax rate determines how much property tax revenue we're going to get in. And it's kind of hard to have a budget when you don't know what revenue is coming in. We don't usually have the numbers from the county in time. So we do our best to come up with what we think the rate will be and what we think we will have in revenues to allocate to the departments. Is there public input? Yes. We have to have a public hearing on the tax rate and the budget each year. And I believe that's the September meeting.
So the budget public hearing is next Tuesday,
Okay,
and then the tax rate we just set will be September 17th,
okay.
that public hearing.
So they can come in and do public comments and voice their concerns with the rate or the budget. And the
And
budget, once it's filed with Ms. Alice, it's available for them to come in and pick up a copy, and it's also available on the website. Yes.
I was saying, and of course, EDC had their budget workshop, their public hearing on their budget and projects in July.
Okay, so, again, like I was saying, we, have the tax rate for the property tax, and it's broken down into two different parts. It's the maintenance and operations and debt service, which pays the bonds. The, debt service portion is always, dependent upon the amount that we are paying for the year. So if we tell the county that we need $2 million for debt, then they will give a rate based on our property values that will generate $2 million for the bond payment. The maintenance and operating, it is, there's a 3.5% cap on what, from the prior year, that we can generate on property tax. So the tax rate, the tax bill that you receive for your properties actually goes to three different entities, taxing entities. You have the county. It's last year's tax rate was 47 cents. Ours is currently 77 cents, and the school is 1.0264. And this is just a nice breakdown to show you how it is, the percentages for each one. With the, for the debt service, this is just a slide to show you what you can and can't purchase with debt. You can buy facilities, infrastructures, and land, and you cannot pay for anything that's recurring, like personnel, maintenance, supplies, and day-to-day services. This one?
Sure, you can do this? Okay, so when it comes to setting the tax rate, there's 5 steps that typically you go through to do that. And of course, the first thing that you did is that you need to determine your debt. And I don't know, Pam, but I kind of talked about that, but we've got to figure out what our debt ratio is. This year, we are actually including our CARES payment into our debt payment. So that will be paid part of our debt portion that we'll be collecting. And so you'll see that in a little bit. It's $2.5 million is what we're requesting debt service to pay. There is a calculation. It's not just always your debt payment. Sometimes you get extra because you get new property that comes in that may have been protested during the tax rate, and different things come in. So if you actually receive additional funds, you've got to spend that, and you can only spend that money on debt service. So if you get extra, you can then use that extra money to pay for your debt. So you may end up owing, let's say you owe $3 million in debt. You might, and if you had $200,000 left over, you may reduce that by 2.5 But you gotta set that calculation based on what you're gonna expect the following year. So, that was one of the meetings when Pam and I were discussing, one of the meetings that the mayor walked in on, and I was trying to figure out what is our debt service that we have to turn in the county. So we have to kind of figure out with all that and figure out the balance of what we request from the county to be our debt service. And that was due to the county a couple of weeks ago, because the county does set our official tax rates, taking the appraisal district sets our rates for us. And so once your tax rate or your debt rate is served, is determined, and again, like Pam said, that is the rate that generates with your current year property, will generate the tax dollars to make the payment that you turn in to the county for your debt services. The next thing you have to determine is your maintenance and operations. And the first thing the state requires is that you have your no new revenue. So what that means is you determine how much money you raise this current year with your tax dollars, with your current property, how much money you raised for maintenance and operation. And then you got to determine, based on the new property values, the new assessed values, what is the tax rate for next year with the exact same property you have this year that's going to generate that same dollar amount. And so that's how you set the no new revenue rate. And of course, you add the maintenance and operation, you add to the debt service, and that gives you your total no new revenue tax rate for both debt and maintenance and operation. Then there's also a number that you have to determine is your voter approval rate. So Pam mentioned earlier, by state law now, we are allowed to go up 3.5%. We're able to increase that. If you go more than 3.5%, you have to go to the voters. Okay? And so you got to determine that. So again, using your current property, what tax rate would it take to generate with your current property the additional revenue of 3.5% of what you collected this year? And then that becomes your voter approval tax rate when you add it to your debt rate. Then you got to turn. There's also we don't have that on there. There's a de minimis rate that's not on here that we determined. The de minimis rate for cities that are less than 30,000 population. There's a de minimis rate that you're allowed to use that generates $500,000 a year. So that's an additional $500,000 in revenue. And so it was basically the state legislature did this. So the theory was that you could buy a fire truck, and that any city that needs to buy a fire truck should be able to do that. So they said, we'll allow you to have an increase. Those cities, those smaller cities, any city less than 30,000, should be able to buy a fire truck. But I don't know the last time you priced a fire truck, but you're not buying a fire truck for $500,000. So the state kind of missed that mark when they set that rate. But we are not looking at that for this year. I will tell you that on the voter approval tax rate, one of the things that you are allowed to do is you are allowed to use what they call incremental, unused increment financing. So if your voter approval rate, let's say for us, let's say it's 75 cents is your voter approval rate, okay? If it's 75 cents and we say we're only going to charge, or we're only going to implement a 73-cent tax rate, then we're leaving 2 cents on the table. You can combine those increments that would be left on the table for 3 previous years and add to your voter approval rate. Okay? Now that's important because what is being proposed this year, we are doing that. We are using a portion of our last 3 years increment to get us to that voter approval rate number that's higher. So we'll go over that a little bit later when we get into the actual budget. But we are using that increment, or we're proposing to use that increment this year to balance the budget. And then, of course, you've got to determine, as a council, you've got to determine what that property tax rate is going to be. And so, as we mentioned, next Tuesday, you will set a proposed tax rate, okay? And then on September 5th, we will put that tax rate in the paper. And then on September 17th, we will have the public hearing for that tax rate. And on the 17th, we will also adopt a debt service tax rate, an M&O tax rate, and also approve the levy for those taxes. So, any questions on how we determine the tax rate? Okay, we'll get into the budget. Okay, before we get started, I do want to thank this team. Okay? They did an amazing job this year, knowing that we were coming into it, learning that we were not going to get the funding, that revenues that we had projected and budgeted for. They did an awesome job this year of holding back and being fiscally responsible and controlling the spending so that we have, we're able to come in this year without that deficit. Plus, then they turned around this budget year and requested, and it was great with working with Pam and I and the finance team on coming up with what their requests are for the line items. Knowing that we had some major priorities that we needed to take care of this year, they came in with their request and they worked with us to make this a balanced budget. So they did a great job. I want to thank Pam and her team. This book, you can see all the work that goes into putting this together. And I know it wasn't just Pam and her team, but it was Angela and Alice's team. They all worked together to get all this together. It's a building effort to make this come together and work so that we can present this budget to you. Lots of late nights, lots of weekends, a lot of time was spent on getting this budget. You have before you a balanced budget, okay? We had some priorities this year. Our number one priority was to take care of our staff. That has been an issue for several years. It's really came to head this year. And so our number one priority was taking care of our staff and doing the final step of our implementation plan. So if you remember, we had a compensation study that we did back in 2020. That compensation study was adopted in 23, and we've been implementing steps of it ever since. Included in this balanced budget is the final step, which is what I refer to as a longevity. And basically, it's putting everybody into their grade based on their experience and years of service. And so that's included in here. But it was a costly endeavor to be able to get that. But basically, if you remember, we'll get to that in a minute, but we have a 15-step program. With every pay grade, there's 15 steps. And so a lot of people, one of the first things that we did was we moved everybody to their minimum. I believe it was like 60% of our staff were being paid below the minimum for their pay grade. We moved everybody to the minimum. And so we still have a lot of people that are in that step 1, step 2, step 3, right there at the beginning from when we implemented it, that we've got people that have been here for 20 years that are still that step 1, step 2. And this will move them to a higher level. Now, I will tell you that we kind of capped it off at 10, step 10. So if you've been here for a long time, we said 10 right now, which gets you about 2/3 of the way through the plan. That gives you some room to grow. And it also, just financially, we had to come up with something. But if you've been here a long time, that's kind of where we kept it off. And then you'll have 5 years, you'll be able to be at the max. Another thing that we have included in the budget as part of the base budget is to do another compensation study. You remember those plans are supposed to be done every 3 to 5 years. The one that we have was done in 2020. We didn't adopt it till 23, but it was done in 2020. So with this implementation this year, we're basically getting us to what was recommended and needed back in 2020. So it's 5 years behind, because this will be 2025 budget. And so in the budget, we've also got funding available, or have allocated funding to do a compensation study. So we're going to finish the implementation and correct it, but we also know that in the last 5 years, some of those positions within the city have changed and need to be paid and compensated differently. And so we need to look at that. So that's in the budget to be able to take care of that next year. So during our fiscal year, we will take care of that. The next year in the budget, we'll be hopefully be able to adopt that program and implement it, or at least a portion of it as well. And so those are all in here. I will tell you, if you look at your first page, this is a new proposed, it's the state cover page is what they call it, that you cover on your budget. This is one that shows your property tax rate. And so this is new. The original budget that we submitted to the city secretary, that we submitted online, it's in the city secretary's office, was submitted on August 5th. You have that sheet. It's the third sheet here in the front. That was the one at that time. This was our best guesstimate. It's a guess and it's an estimate. This is Pam and I working to try to determine what our tax rate's going to be. There is a form. It's a truth and taxation form that the county provides to us, that goes through all the property values, all the contested property. They have lots of numbers that they have to work through. And so we've got that form. We kind of work on it together. We don't have the numbers. We don't have the information, but we kind of utilize what we had last year. We use the new data that we do have to kind of fill in the blanks that we can. That's what we use to come up with this initial budget. That's initial budget that we turned in on August 5th because of the sales tax relief and several other different things. When we did the budget estimate, we were actually going to have to lower our voter approval rate. Was actually going to require us to lose money in our general fund next year by $30,000 and lower our interest, our rate, or reduce our revenues by 0.51%. And of course, as it says there, it was generating additional $278,000 in new property. And so at that time, we were proposing a tax rate of 73.45 for the tax rate, with a $2.5 million debt service. Monday, at that time on August 5th, we had the certified values from Liberty County and we had the certified values from San Jacinto County. This Monday, we received the certified values from Montgomery County. So that is what we have recalculated that, and based on that, it have changed the numbers. Again, this is our guesstimate. Okay, we have not got the official numbers from the county, so we will have to, once we receive those, then we'll have to make some adjustments, or potentially make some adjustments. And so what you'll see today is that with the new values that we received from Montgomery County, now with our, it increased our voter approval tax rate to 76.8874, so that's the highest that we can go without having to go to the voters. Again, our current tax rate is 77 cents, so that reduces our tax rate that we're allowed to do. And what we are currently recommending is 76.5 cents. Okay, and so again, we're going to leave a little bit of an increment on there, not much, but we're leaving a little bit that could be used in the future. And it's basically saying we're going to reduce our tax rate by 0.5 cent. That actually will generate an extra $190,000 this year, which is a 3.37% increase in our budget, and $290,000 of that is coming from new property. So one of the things I want you to keep in mind tonight as we're going through this overall, with this new tax rate, is going to generate about another $100,000, okay? On what we balanced the budget with, based on the numbers that we had on the August 5th tax rate. So as we go through this, you know, if there's money available, I want to be able to have some kind of input from y'all on where we want to maybe focus that money. And so some of the shortfalls that we currently have, and also we have talked to the county. There's a possibility we could be getting, or the agreement could be offering us up to about $200,000 for next year. So if we were to receive that $200,000, that would be a little bit additional funding as well. If you even agree to the $200,000, knowing that we spend over $600,000 a year on those services. But again, those are some things to keep in mind. In this budget, we have budgeted zero from the county because that's what we received this year, and we didn't want to be in a situation where we didn't get funding and budgeted for funding again. So there are some within the budget. Last year, we transferred $1.3 million from water and sewer to general fund to make it balance. This year we're projecting 1.6. So if there's extra funding, we could reduce that transfer. That's one option. Another option is to balance this budget. We had to freeze 4 positions that we currently have that people are not in. And so we could unfreeze those positions. That's about $351,000 for this next year. We also, you'll see at the first tab is organization. We'll go over that in a minute. That's all of our current staffing and the positions that we have within our budget. The very last one you see on the tab is personnel. Those are all of our personnel requests that we have. So we have reclassifications. We asked for people to have different pay grades. There was requests to go from part-time to full-time. There was requests for new positions. Okay, those are all in that personnel. That personnel for those new and reclass positions is $253,000. Okay, and so those have not been funded or looked at this point because we had to freeze positions just to get the balanced budget. So again, that's somewhere that we can look at as well. And of course, there's several supplementals, some projects that were requested throughout the budget that did not get funding to be able to balance this budget. So again, that's one of the things I just wanted you to consider and think about as we go through this budget. Because when we do get the official tax rate, if we increase our funding, how do we want to, we need some direction for you guys. When we come back to you, we can say, all right, here's what we use that additional funding for. Now, if that tax rate comes back and it actually reduces what we budgeted for, then we're going to have to make some additional cuts. And so again, that will be determined. Hopefully before next Tuesday, we will get those numbers and we can discuss that in our budget workshop and council meeting next week. The second page you have in your budget, kind of the red and blue, you see the last 10 years history of our tax rate. And you can see that basically in 2015, 2016 was the highest tax rate years for the last 10 years. Those were at 78 cents. Then you went down to 77 cents for about 4 years. We lowered for a couple of years. We lowered the tax rate for 3 consecutive years, going all the way down to 71 and a half cents. Last year we went back up to 77 to be able to balance the budget, and this year we're proposing a 76.5 at this time. And so you can kind of see that. You can also see that the red, which indicates your general fund, that tax rate portion, because of that 3.5% and your increase in sales tax relief, you can see that that portion continually goes down over the last several years. Okay. Any questions on any of that? The next section is, of course, the organization. So you have the organizational chart here, including the mayor and yourself, myself, and the department heads, and the different functions that we have underneath that. The next couple of pages you have is our personnel. So this is our current organization makeup. And so it lists all the different positions that we have. it shows you on the top what pay grade, there's 19 pay grades. It shows you where, what pay grade those different departments, or those different employees are, and how many. So like on the very first one, just kind of show you, you can see there's a customer service rep. You can see under pay grade 3, there's 2 of those. And then the rest of the staff, there's only 1 in each of those positions. You'll see at the bottom of the third page of that we have a total of 131 positions currently within the city. We did add some from last year. You remember we brought the facility services department in-house. That added employees. We also brought the airport in-house. That added employees. And so that was kind of where your difference is from last year to this year in the number here. And then the last page in this section is the current pay grade and step plan that we adopted last year during the budget process. The next section is our master fee schedule. And so again, we went this route last year through the budget process where we adopted a master fee schedule. And so all we do every year is review it, and then you'll have to approve the changes with the budget in there. And so we have made some changes. Those are highlighted in yellow. These are the numbers that the budget is based on. Okay, and so Ashley has requested some fee increases for her rental facilities. It's been many years since we have made some adjustments in those departments. And so you can kind of see there where the Civic Center, the room rental, the Stansel Park, the cabin, the different pieces of equipment, so you can see where those rates, the new rates that are being proposed. And then, like I said, that additional, we estimated what that additional rate increase would provide, and then we put that in the budget. Page 6 of the 13, you'll actually look at development services. Emilio and Danielle have been busy adding a bunch of yellow lines in this section. Some of them are current rates that need to be adjusted. There's some rates that have been added that they've been using that have not been in the budget.
With the highlighting, if it's highlighted on the left and the right, that's either a change in the name and the amount, or it's a new item. If it's only highlighted on the right, only be a dollar amount change. And some of them, they said they had a fee for previously, but it was not included in the master fee schedule. It was our ordinance. We had a clause in the implementation of the ordinance that implemented the master fee schedule that said any fees left off of the schedule refer back to the ordinances available.
So if I was city secretary and y'all fees are, somebody has an open record report.
Yes, if they have an open records request, we will provide them with this schedule. And then the ordinances,
It's not posted on this board.
excuse me?
I said it's not posted with the fee schedule on
And
here.
which one is that?
Secretary fees, like someone has an open record request.
They're at the end, the, very last page, page 17. It says miscellaneous administrative.
Miscellaneous.
But no, it's under that section, it says open records. Okay.
You got your commercial rate.
I'll get that added on there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have to add the commercial waterfall rate. I'll get that added.
For all trade.
Yes.
Hey, do you have a spring irrigation rate?
I do. I have irrigation on there.
Is it on, I'll say it's the one that left off.
Yeah, irrigation is on there. I added for plumbing.
I was like, you got the commercial on all of that.
So I have the irrigation, that one's on there. I have the temporary pole. I did do the sewer line install and the water line install as well. So I added both of those. Irrigation has always been on there. It was just under the plumbing permit, and so I just took that out of there and itemized it on its own line for itself. And then fuel, gas, and the test or inspection, that one's on there as well.
That one's not city, it's just the commercial one.
And then, for electrical, for those trades, I did the temp pole, and then I added the ampage, the amps on that one. And I itemized that one, and then I added boilers.
Okay.
So which one was missing, just the commercial?
The commercial rates for all trades, for the MEPs, because they're waterfall, but it's not, I'll get it to you.
Thank you. I'm gonna say, can you say anything?
Everything's residential and all that.
I know, yeah, it's, on our permit fees on the ordinance, it has it to where basically everything for commercial is just, waterfall.
Okay.
But I'll get it added on there, so on the next one you'll see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then on page, well, it says page 16 and 13. I guess on page 16, you'll see under utilities, there's a lot of numbers there. If you remember last year, we talked about utilities and we did a 10% increase. We adopted a 10% increase last year, and then we were going to go ahead and make sure that we did another 10% increase next year because we were far behind all the surrounding areas. And so that included in here is an additional 10% increase for the utilities.
On the food trucks, it's $100 for the year.
I'm sorry, I was
For the food trucks,
Mm-hmm.
it's $100 per year.
Yes, exactly. Those are annual costs.
So just to make a note, a lot of cities around here do charge $500 for a year fee for food trucks. So-
Yeah, and that, so I did do that. Oh, I have a thing. Well,
I've been looking through different things on.
yeah,
I think
and
a
that
lot.
was one thing
We're
that I
kind of
did
low
with
on
the
that.
rates. I did go through all of them, all of the fees that we do have, and I went through all the surrounding cities and basically looked to see where we can increase rates to where it wasn't,
Too much.
yeah, I mean, with the surrounding cities and just for what would just benefit us more, and that's where even with our, MEPs,
Yeah.
with
No, I,
doing that, we had a long conversation on that with MEPs, because right now even our MEP rates on those, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. On our MEP rates right now, those base costs are 130, where surrounding cities are 75, and I can't afford to drop those. Versus if I up the cost on the mobile food truck, so it's kind of like we kind of got to give and take on our fees. So that is where, I kind of had to,
no, I just wanted
yeah.
everyone to
But
know.
surrounding cities are charging $500, $1,000 for the food trucks, and we're doing $100.
And we can't even get anyone to pull their permit.
Yeah. So,
There's three main benchmark cities that we use: Conroe, Dayton,
Livingston.
But I don't know what Livingston is, but I know Dayton and Conroe and Stockton are 500. I don't know where Livingston is at. That's why, but that's just something to keep in the back burner and something y'all want to think about later on, or if y'all want to do it now or anything.
Well, going forward, it's something we're gonna have to look at real closely, what are the surrounding areas, all the same size.
The other issue we're running into though too is we're third party as opposed to a lot of like Livingston, I know, and Conroe, I know, they have their own internal inspections.
Right.
So that's where, we're making maybe $10 an inspection and permit.
If at that.
Like, maybe the
Yeah.
gas.
And that's where even like on our re-inspections, I changed those fees. If you look on the master fee schedule for our re-inspections, I put in there to change those costs so at least we can, get something off of those, because right now in re-inspection fees, we're not getting anything off of them because we have the third party and we're paying them out and we're not getting anything off of re-inspection. So, I'm changing those costs to do that, so I'm just trying to kind of balance it out to where if I can make, those changes in those fees, because like you said, with Livingston doesn't have anything for mobile food trucks, but both Conroe and Dayton charge $500 per slot on those. And it's only 100 for us.
And just FYI, the master fee schedule can be adopted and amended several times throughout the year. It doesn't have to be one. So if it takes more time to do the research, we can come back and update
Well, I
those
know
things later.
you've been researching over here with it, so.
And if y'all do want it, I do have the research that I did. I do have it in an Excel worksheet of all the cities that I looked at, and I have it broken down for every permit, all the fees that we have.
Can you email that?
I can email it to y'all.
Yeah.
You want to see it?
No.
Okay.
Just, tomorrow, when you get a chance, just email that, something.
Absolutely.
But now, something else that, I talked to Scott about earlier, on everything that we're doing, the surrounding, cities, they, we move the goalposts, they gonna move their goalposts. We get raises, they gonna get raises. I mean, that's something we have to look at, just a lot to consider. That's all I'm saying.
No, it is.
We got a lot to look at.
Well, like we also discussed earlier, our per capita income
Right.
is different, even going 10 miles down the road in either direction.
Right, our median household income, you can drive 10 minutes south and their income is double, over double. So, that's why we have to be, realize what we have and what we can and can't do, because whatever we do this year, the other areas, they're gonna move the goalpost again. Because, they don't want us to get too close to them. And that's what the school does. I mean, Dayton, Liberty, Livingston, Humboldt, we would always try to stay in the same ballpark with them, but we couldn't beat them. We just stayed in, same ballpark with them.
Okay, if you'll turn to the next section, the general fund revenues, 100. We'll kind of go over, you'll see the cover sheet. Every section will have a cover sheet. We kind of call it the blue sheet now. We got the blue spreadsheet. So I'll go over kind of with the format here. You'll see on the top left, that is the breakdown. You list every line category within the fund, how it's broken down. So you list each of those lines here. The first column was the actual, on this situation, it's revenues. It's the actual revenues that we received for those line items. When you get into the expenditure forms, those would be the actual expenditure for each of those categories. The middle column there is what we're projected to spend this year on each of those line items. And then what you have on the far right column is what our budget is for that line item. And then the blue chart next to it kind of shows you those three in a graph form. You can see how it's trending, whether on this one you can see it kind of spikes up and back down. And then on the bottom, what we have done again this year is if any line item that has what we consider a significant increase or decrease, and what we determine is significant is 3%. So it either has to increase by 3% or decrease by 3%, or has to be more than $3,000. Okay, we've got a $12 million budget. So if it's less than $3,000, it's probably not significant overall in your overall budget. If it's less than 3% if the line item, which is one little bitty line item out of all the line items in the whole budget, if it increases or decreases more than 3%, then if it's less than 3%, it's not significant, so we didn't put it on here as a highlight. Okay, any of those that are more than 3% and more than $3,000 up or down, we include online. Just kind of give you a breakdown. Now, the pages right behind it is every single line item. Okay, so you have all the information there, and then if there's supplementals for those will be in there as well. And so we'll kind of go over the changes. This is the revenue, so there is quite a bit of changes on our revenue side. So again, the current taxes, what's in the budget, you'll see that we're doing a decrease of $114,000. Okay, that's for your collection for the property tax. Now this again is based on what we did on August 5th. not the one that we estimated for this week. One of the things you gotta remember is we have the sales tax relief, okay? So you can see here that our property tax, let's say it generates $3.1 million, okay? If our sales tax from last year is $200,000, then you take that 3.1 and you subtract it 200,000 from it, and that's what you can collect for your property taxes. So that's kind of why you see sometimes, and we'll see that trim down a little bit on our sales tax. Under the next two you see is TERS 1 and TERS 2 transfers. Again, last year we budgeted both of our TERS payments for TERS 1 and TERS 2 out of our general fund, our M&O side. This year we have moved that over to our debt service side. So it's a debt that we have to pay. And so we have got clarification that we can do that. A lot of cities do that. And so we are now moving it over to that part of our debt payment. And so that's why you see a reduction there. So it's an increase of over $760,000. Our attorney fee, or our P&I attorney fees, this goes with our, this is with the county appraisal district. This is a number that they send to us, not the appraisal district. And so that has increased over this last year, so we budgeted that in here to reflect what was last year's. You'll see the next one is our sales tax. And so you see that we have a net change, we're budgeting a net change of $200,000. Our EDC transfer, you see that it's a $33,000, I guess,
Increase in
it's
sales
a
tax.
payment out of revenue, so the payment's increasing, but it shows up as a negative because it's less money on our revenue, but it's actually an increase into the payment out of our revenues over the EDC. And since we're collecting more sales tax, we've got our payment to EDC increases as well, because it's that 0.25%. So with our sales tax increase, so is our payment. CenterPoint, that's an increase based on prior year trends. Our waste management fees, you'll see that there's a reduction of $47,000. We went from 47.3 to 0. That's because that contract ended. You'll see that the next line down went from 0 to 52,000. And of course, that's because of our new contract with Frontier Waste that replaced our waste management fee. Oh, thank you. The next line item, correctional center pilot, you'll see it's a zeroed out for next year. This was the payment that we were receiving from the prison here in town. We were receiving a payment every year, a pilot payment, which is a payment in lieu of taxes, every year from the management company that managed that facility. Now that the state has taken it over, the state says we don't pay property taxes. We're not paying it. And so we lost $100,000 with that. Building permits, you see a decrease there. That's just based on our current trend. We're estimating that next year our construction will probably be the same as this last year. This last year it decreased. As you know, interest rates increased, and a lot of construction and development has decreased because of that. And we've seen that effect, and we're budgeting next year to be similar to this year. Of course, the election may change that. We don't know what's going to happen, but rather be conservative and get more money than budget too much and not have enough. So, plumbing and gas permits, again, that's a decrease based on current trends. Civic Center rental, you see a $5,000 increase. Again, that's because of the new rate, the rates that we have proposed in the master fee schedule. The cemetery income, you see an increase there. We did budget last year for an increase because we increased the rates last year. And we're seeing additional revenue coming in, so we're estimating, again, an increase there because of the current trend. And then the EDC administrative service reimbursement. This is from where EDC pays the general fund for all the administrative assistance that they get from City Hall to EDC. And so that has been decreased by $12,000. That's basically $1,000 a month rent that the director was paying for the office space here at City Hall. And then the airport administration reimbursement. This is a new line item. Again, we took the airport over this year, and this is basically a reimbursement for administrative services because, again, just like EDC, that's a separate group, but they utilize services and staff here in City Hall, and so that's that fee. The next one's a maintenance reimbursement. This is basically reimbursing the general fund for public works for going out there, mowing and taking care of the grounds and so forth. The traffic criminal fees have decreased. Again, the trends from the last year. Insurance proceeds. This is something that has been budgeted for to have insurance money come in every year. And so we have decided that that's probably not a good practice, that we just need to probably budget zero. It's bad to project and budget for us to have some kind of accident or something where we would get an insurance payment. So if we get insurance, then that's an additional revenue, but it's not necessarily good to budget for that. So again, trying to be conservative with the budget, we took that out. Sports park revenue, one of the things that we're working with our sports associations is they're supposed to be reimbursing us for their electricity use out there, and so we are working with them and getting that payment, so that's an increase on those revenues. Community event sponsorship, this goes back to our new Frontier Waste contract. Part of what they did with their contract is they gave us $40,000 for community event sponsorship, and so that's where that $40,000 goes to help pay for the 4th of July and all the different programs and activities that we have through the Civic Center. Sale of assets, again, we're trying to go through based on previous trends, but this is all the stuff that we take to auction and sell off every year, which we do. We do send stuff every year for that, and so just kind of doing the trends on that. And then our interest has increased here from 160 to 240,000. Pam is doing a great job of investing our money and using the money we have with text pool and different things to try to get us additional interest, and it's paying off. So our current trend is higher than what we've had in the past, and you kind of see that budget here. And then we have a significant increase in our grant funding. As you all know, our SAFER grant decrease in our SAFER grant. We lost it. I think October was the last payment that we received for the SAFER grant, so we are no longer going to be getting funding from that. And then, of course, we talked about this one earlier, Liberty County fire runs. We budgeted $400,000 last year, and we received zero, and so there's a decrease in that to basically, we're projecting not to have any funding at this time. Billing and collection fees was decreased by $5,000 based on prior year. And then airport rentals, there is a rate increase that they just adopted. And so you see a little bit of a change there. Like we included a commercial rate, and then also based on the trends that we're seeing, there's an increase. We have aviation fuel. This is, of course, airport. That was something that's new to us. So last year we didn't have anything budgeted. This year we're budgeting $250,000 based on what we're seeing this year so far. Jet fuel, we budgeted $6,000 now, and that's something we just started. So unfortunately, we have 2 whole months of revenue that we've received. And each one of those months, we've had a special situation come out there. A certain contractor would go out there and spend a week or two and would buy a lot. So we kind of took those special situations out and then took the average. So we're hoping that maybe that will add a zero to that in the next future, in the next year or whatever. But for right now, based on the 2 months of history that we have for jet fuel, that's kind of what we're basing that number. And then again, on the airport, the ramp, if you remember previously, that ramp reimbursement that we got from TxDOT and FAA were $50,000 a year. We budgeted $50,000. Last year, TxDOT increased that funding to $100,000 ramp reimbursement. We are being told that that is what's being projected for this year as well. And so, obviously, we will wait to make sure and confirm that there is a $100,000 reimbursement before we move forward. But that's supposed to be going before them pretty soon, and once that gets approved, then we'll have it. If they only approve $50,000, then we will, of course, we will not spend the $100,000 to get that reimbursement. Transfer in, we talked about this a little bit last year. We budgeted $1.2 million to be transferred from water and sewer to balance the general fund. This year we're projected at 1.6, almost $1,650,000 to do that. So that's a $414,000 increase. And then our fund balance transfer in for projects. This is transferring in from our fund balance. So remember, we did this last year for a couple of our projects, these one-time purchases. And so we're also doing that again this year. We are projected to use some of our fund balance to pay for some of these one-time projects that we've got within the budget that need to be done. One of the examples you may remember is we purchased the police trucks this year out of fund balance. We're planning on doing the same thing this year by buying those out of the fund balance. On our projections, you'll see in our budget for the general fund this year we're actually coming in, so we should be moving some money into fund balance even for this year. So some of that money could be used to help pay for some of those items. Any questions on that one? On any of the revenues for the general fund? The next one, you don't have a blue sheet on, but it's the Unity Donation Fund. The Unity Fund, y'all probably not familiar with the Unity Committee. Unfortunately, this committee has not been very active the last couple of years. The donations and contributions have gone significantly the last couple of years. You'll see in the current year projections, we're only projected to receive $3,650 this year. 50 of that is interest. And so it's actually being recommended that we go ahead and just do away with this. And so you see that we have zero budgeted for next year is what we're looking at doing. And so doing away with this, all the expenditures basically now are being funded through general operation, hotel motel funds. And then of course, like we mentioned earlier, $40,000 is coming from Frontier Waste. So it's kind of doing away with this. But we wanted to make sure and show y'all that we're planning on doing away with the Unity Fund at this point. The next one is our city council budget. And this is basically stuff that relates to the council. And so you see those numbers there. Last year's actual was $38,000. We're projected to spend about $35,750 this year, and we're budgeting $46,750 for next year. The significant changes that you see there is our advertising decreased from 7,000 to 1,000, and then our seminars and schools decreased from 15,000 to 10,000. The main reason for this one is this year our conference is in Houston, and so the cost to go to the conference for the council is going to be less this year. And so, any questions on that one? The next one is administration. And so this one, last year's actual expenditure was $1.2 million. We're projected to spend $1.3 million this year, and then we're proposing $1.5 million for this upcoming year. You'll see on the significant changes below that Salaries has a $71,000 increase, and this is, again, implementing that new longevity pay. You'll see this pretty much in every department. Almost every department has got this because of the longevity. Administration, just to let you know, this does include pretty much everybody in City Hall except for this side. Development services and utility is not included. Everybody on this side is included in administration, okay, of the building. So, and again, because salaries increased, group insurance based on the elections of the employees increased, but because of longevity, you've also Social Security increased, retirement increased, as well as all tied to when the salary goes up, so do all those other numbers go up. Legal, we did an increase there based on just current year trends. Our contract did go up last year, and so, and you all are aware, we've had several more. We're busier. We've got more projects. We've got more stuff that's been going on, which requires more legal assistance as well. So that's in here. Our accounting and audit increased because of the annual fees that they charge us. Our annual fee for ADP processing is actually it's in here as an increase. I will tell you that as of today, we are switching from ADP, which does our payroll, to Paycom. Something we've been working on for probably about 6 months, trying to get this all worked out, get the legal things worked out on that. They're going to be able to provide us a whole lot better service, a lot more features for our personnel. So we'll be implementing that probably the first part of October. It takes a while to get the transition, but then also that rate was they were able to come in at the same rate, but provide a whole lot more services for our personnel. One of the things that we did not budget for last year was our health benefits admin fee. And so Brinson Benefits is our administrator. In the past, that was all taken out of the monthly payments that we made to the insurance provider. And so that changed with our contract last year, but we didn't put it in the budget to be paid directly from us. And so that's something that we're adding this year, is those fees for all those different services to go on. And that also includes like our telemedicine, the AEP, employee,
Navigator.
the navigator, and then what's the AEP, employee? Lyric. I mean, so it's a different services that we provide that's covered by all the employees. Goes into that administration fee. Other professional services, we decreased that based on prior year trends. Facility maintenance, you're going to see this in several of the departments, and so we decreased that facility maintenance cost. No, that's not, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of operating supplies. So based on our current year trends, that's the maintenance on our facility. That's the decrease because of the maintenance. Liberty County CAD, of course you'll see this here. There's about a 30% increase in their fee annually. So it's nice that they can charge us an extra 30% that we have to pay Liberty County, but I'll leave that alone. Anyway, so that fee that we have to pay increased, and so we budgeted for that increase. Montgomery CAD, you see that the fee in there, $6,000 is in there for our properties that are in Montgomery County. Office supplies, we are eliminating that in all the budgets, and we're moving it to operating supplies. And so we had office supplies and operating supplies pretty much in every department, and people were using them both same kind of things. And so we're like, let's just combine those into one just to make it cleaner and easier to manage. And so you see that combination there. Employee relations, and so this is the money that we use um, what's that? The Christmas, our Christmas, cards that we give out to the employees, the part-time, full-time employees, that comes out of here, that's budgeted within each department. And then you'll
So
see.
the employee relations,
Mhm.
remember we moved all of it to admin? Yeah, this is for citywide.
Okay.
So the other departments, we made zero, that way it's easier for Angela to keep up with the budget versus having to go allocate to each department, so. All of the employee relations was moved from the department.
So that's why we, yes, that's right.
Yes.
So we went from 6,800 for just the administration to 18,000 for the citywide, and it's all being transferred in to admin for us to come out in one. Since HR kind of handles that, deals with that, and they're budgeted within the administration budget. Then other operating supplies, we talked about that already. Copier expense, basically it increased based on our current year trends. Postage, same thing. Postage cost has gone up. You'll see the increase there. Any questions on the administration? Next, you see the Civic Center. Again, you see the different lines there broken down in different categories. Last year's actual was $238,000. This year, we're projecting to spend about $360,000, and then we're budgeting $292,000 for next year. When you look at salaries, you actually see a decrease here, and that is because we moved some of the Civic Center employees to facility services. We created a facility services department, and some of those employees that oversee the facility maintenance and servicing is now moved into that different department. So you'll see a whole new department that those employees have been moved to that. Because of that, your group insurance has decreased, your retirement contribution has decreased. Unfortunately, electricity is going up, and so we have an increase in our electricity based on our prior year trends. Property insurance, you're going to see this throughout the city as well. Our property insurance is going up on a lot of our facilities. Janitorial supplies, you see the reduction there. This is the line item we're taking a lot of the funds for and putting it into facility services, because those are the custodial supplies that they're going to be buying. And then events, we do have an increase there of $40,000. And again, that's tied back to that $40,000 sponsorship that we got from Frontier Waste for the programming. Any questions on these? Moving to court, you'll see salaries. Well, go back to the top. So last year, our actual expenditure was roughly $240,000. We're projected to spend about $230,000 this year, and then we're budgeting roughly $236,000 for next year. Salaries, we see a $78,000 decrease in their salaries. That's because one of the frozen positions is within the court, and that's the warrant officer position. That position was not filled this year, so it's been open all this year. I want to say even last year, part of it for last year, it was May of last year. So it's been an open position. Chief Broussard usually assigns an officer to kind of fill the role during court, to assist with that. And so we're planning on, that's one of the positions that we froze to balance the budget. So that's one of them that's in there. You see the decrease, but of course, because of that, you'll see the decrease in the group insurance and the Social Security, and then legal, there's a decrease there reflecting from the prior year expenses, and then our inmate expense has gone down based on our current year expenditures as well. Any questions on that one? Technology. You'll see here that we spent roughly, we spent $468,000 last year. We're projected to spend $460,000 this year, and we're projecting to spend $514,000 next year. I will tell you that this is one of the budgets that there were numerous supplementals, and a lot of those supplementals did not get funded. And so, there's a lot of technology that we are behind on that we need to implement, that we need to do, but it's expensive. Security cameras, there's a request for a lot of those throughout the city that we don't have. New computers, new software. We're not on, one of them that's a big one, big expense for us that's not in the budget, was requested, is to move to Microsoft 360. 365, I mean, that's been around for a while. We're still in the stone ages here, but it's a high dollar expense, so.
See, we have to, that's little miscellaneous stuff that we really don't think about.
Yep. I mean, even our Encode, the Encode, which is our main system for all of our financing and everything, Court uses it, PD uses it. And of course, we all use it for finance, but Development Services uses that program. That we are way behind on that program as well. But these are hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement these new softwares. And so you got the supplementals. You can see them in there. That's why we provide them, so that like the mayor's saying, it's something that you don't always think about, but it's in here. But they're not always approved. But I just wanted to highlight that because this is one of the categories that we had a lot of requests that we weren't able to fund. And so, but when you look down on the significant changes here, there is a decrease in our Blue Iron contract, and so.
That note is wrong. That's my apologies. I didn't update it from last year. It's actually a decrease because we allocated there's an annual fee, and then there's the contracted services, and we allocated the annual fee last year only to administration, and this year we allocated it amongst all the funds, so it decreased the amount.
Okay, then you look at software license admin, you'll see an increase there. There's a $50,000 increase in that line item. That's that's basically server holders. So we've got a server that is on its very last leg. And so that's, I want to say that initial installation for that one server is $71,000. And then it's like a $66,000 a year thing to maintain it. But that's one of the significant changes on that one line item. Software license for court, there's a module that they are no longer using, and so they canceled it, so that's a reduction there. Software license for police, again, there's a module that they're not using, so reduction in that cost. Development services, just a reflection on the current year, what they actually spent for their licenses over there. So there's a decrease of about $7,000. Telephone, internet for water production, there's a decrease that reflected on actual expenses. Telephone and internet for the court, there's an increase in their actual expenses for their phone and internet. Police, there's an increase for their phone and internet based on their current year trends. The library there's a decrease based on their current trends, and then fire, there's an increase based on their current trend with their telephone and internet. Any questions on the IT? Okay, next we have facility services. This will be an easy one. Every line item is brand new. So we went from 0 actual last year to 0 for this year because there's nothing being paid out of it this year. Brand new budget for next year, and we're projected $218,956 for that department. And of course, that does include all of your budget items, so your salaries, your benefits, your services that they're going to use. Their training, their education, their supplies, uniforms, and all their expenditures are budgeted in there. We transferred a lot of this from other departments that they were utilizing. And then, of course, you also remember that we had a contract that was in our budget that was no longer being utilized, and so that helped pay for the salary portion of this. Any questions on the new facility services department? Next one is police. And so you'll see here that last year's actual was $3.4 million. They're expected to spend $4.1 million this year. And then our budget for next year is roughly $3.9 million for police services. On this one, you do see a $200,000, $187,000 increase due to the longevity pay. That's kind of misleading a little bit there, because we do have 2 positions that we have frozen in this department that are open currently. They were frozen to balance it. So the implementation of the longevity is significantly higher than just the 187. But when you take those frozen positions out and then you do the implementation of the longevity, you do see there's still an increase of 187. Group insurance went down. Again, a lot of that's because of the frozen positions. Social Security contribution increased. Again, your Social Security contribution is based on your salaries. Your salaries go up, so does your Social Security contribution, as well as your workman's comp. Electricity, if you remember, we kind of just estimated what the cost was going to be. We added a new evidence building, weren't sure what that was going to do for electricity. So we budgeted a little bit higher than what the actual cost was, and so we're going to be decreasing that one down. Motor vehicle repair, we are decreasing that a little bit because we are, I guess with all the newer vehicles, we're seeing a decrease in that cost based on that trend. Facility maintenance, based on facility, current trends and so forth, we are decreasing that. Property insurance, again, that went up. A lot of that's due to the new evidence building. And then, as we talked about, office supplies, we are moving those funds to operating supplies. And so you see the decrease here, you'll see the increase later. And then employee relations, like we talked about, that's all being moved to administration budget. The vehicle purchase, we budgeted for three Tahoes last year. The trucks that we are getting are cheaper than the Tahoes, and you can get them, whereas the Tahoes, no?
I corrected it. It's the Tahoe. I looked at Chief's quote, it's for 2 Tahoes instead of 3. If you look at the quote that's in the, yeah, it's for the Tahoes, right? Yes. Okay, yeah, it wasn't trucks. But
Okay.
I fixed it in the notes.
They're actually gonna be able to give them to you?
Okay.
But I did fix that on the line, just say Tahoe at the end.
Okay. All right, other emergency equipment, there's a $47,000 increase there, because this is an item that wasn't. Is this the best?
Which one is it?
47,000?
The equipment
Oh, for the equipment, okay.
The new cars?
No, that's,
See, I'm
no,
going from
it's
the mountain.
ambulance or something, because the upfitting is budgeted with the vehicle.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's within the vehicle, I'm sorry, just give me 1 second, I'll open
Can you
mine.
pull up the notes on those?
Yes. Give me 1 second.
When we think electric, it's gonna go down with the new evidence building
Well, we budgeted an increase last year for the evidence building, but what we're seeing this year with the evidence building,
Okay.
it's less than what we budgeted for.
Okay. That's what, I didn't hear that before, where the,
I want to say it was, I want to say it was like 15,000 the previous year. We doubled it, not remembering what it was going to cost. And then it's not quite that much, so
Okay.
And it's just 42. It's actually, what is it?
It's, the dash cam and body worn cameras for our cars. So she looked it up. And
It's Axon, that's what's in the notes.
okay.
Yeah, that's the body one.
So we currently use WatchGuard for our dash cams and body worn cameras. They are no longer in warranty. They're not getting service for them, and so those all need to be replaced. And so this is the replacement of those units, and they're going with, is it Exxon? Is that Axiom is the brand that they're going with, which is the newest, latest, and greatest product.
That's Taser. That's Taser Corporation, Axion. So Taser we have, that's their company, Axion.
And then also
Red
two
Door,
stalker,
KYC, most agencies in this area can act.
and it says two stalker radar units.
So she, and Pam, I guess I mean, not to say, but when you classify this other emergency equipment, that's what kind of threw me off. But that's under the Axiom and the two radars, which is, I guess, you know, that's part of it, for the stalker radar and the Axiom too.
Yes, that's what it was.
I'm clear on it now.
And those are the speed radars, or those are the license
Speed
plate?
radars, yes.
And if we need to move the line item, we can, if you think it's together in a different line item, we can do that. The other emergency equipment, you guys actually didn't have it. You never did, so we would put it in like miscellaneous, but we created that this year so we could kind of keep up with what emergency equipment, costs.
Okay, good.
And again, these are the equipment that we're talking about, as well as the Tahoes. Those are all being funded out of the fund balance, to make that happen. But these are things that the police department has to have or need to have, and so we're funding those. So is there any other questions on the police department? Okay, moving to animal control. This is, they spent 71,000 in '23. Projected to spend about 79.5 this year, and we're looking at budgeting for 78,000 next year. And so there's not a 3% or a $3,000 increase in this budget, so it's a fairly flat budget. Any questions on animal control? Okay, development services. And so this one, we spent $413,000 last year. Projected to spend $479,000 this year, and are proposing $526,000 for next year. There are salary decrease. This is primarily because of the reorganization that we've done this year by combining development services and EDC into community development. And so the development service side, we did take the director position and the coordinator position and split those between EDC and development services. But with that, there's also a frozen position, it's frozen for 6 months for that third position. Because if you remember, when we combined the two department heads to make one department head, we talked about that it will evaluate the operations of EDC and development services, and over time figure out where that need is, and then we'll create that third position, or that position to kind of fill that gap. It won't be a director, there'll be a savings, but we need to determine what that position is. And I know development services and EDC have got a lot of things that they're going to be working on this next year that's in the budget, a lot of studies and so forth that'll help us provide direction, give them the resources that they need, and then after that we can probably, between now and then, with all those resources, be able to determine what that best position that we are needing based on the skills and abilities, and where are we lacking and where we need that gap filled, and determine that position at that time. The car allowance was increased because the director's car allowance. Group insurance was decreased. The Social Security was decreased primarily because of the two split positions. Same thing with retirement. Legal, this is something that they weren't, we had budgeted everything in legal over in administrative services or administration. And so we are now kind of trying to appropriate some of those different funds for legal within the department that are using this so we can help better track where those funds and use are. And so we've budgeted for $8,000 for legal there. Other professional services, this is an increase based on, we are doing third party, we're utilizing third party for inspections, we're using them for code enforcement, and we're using them for substandard structures. And so with all that has increased. Seminars in schools, an increase of that to be able to provide additional training for the staff in that department. Credit card fees, we changed, if you remember last year, we changed the percentage that we charge on credit cards across the city. And so that's been reflected of this year's change. Computer equipment software, they are looking to purchase a map plotter. The one that we have does not work, cannot be repaired. And so it's a purchase of a map plotter for that department. Any questions on development services? Moving to the streets. Last year we spent $510,000. We're projected to spend $550,000, and then proposed at $606,000 for next year. On this one, your salaries, there's actually a decrease in the budget, but that's not because they're not getting longevity, they are, but there's an actual position that has been reallocated to parks from streets, and so because of that position being moved over, that funding being moved over, you actually see a decrease in that department, which causes, again, the group insurance retirement to be decreased as well. Street resurfacing, there's an increase there. The professional services, there's a decrease on that one based on current trends. Equipment repair, there's an increase based on current trend. Street drainage and maintenance, there's a decrease reflecting current trend. Seminars in schools, there's a decrease from what was budgeted but reflected of this year's trends. And then street lights, again, there's an increase there based on current trends. Any questions for Roger on that one? Yeah,
Okay. I just want everybody to look at the resurfacing. You know, back to my point, a lot of things, I get calls, complaints every day about potholes, this, street staff, that Margie Street. And that's the main street going into the school at freshman campus. And, you know, what we're doing is good, but I just want to get people to understand that, you know, we got so many different needs. And, you know, we just can't meet all of them. That's just a thought. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I think a lot of what you're saying too, addressing some of that, is the fact that we just don't have the personnel to do a lot.
Correct.
You know, you talk about street resurfacing, we've got, you know, there's an asphalt zipper out there with the, you know, there's different things that we purchase equipment to do it, but we don't have the personnel to be able to do it because they're all out doing other, you know, pipe repair, street repair, you know, reading meters and so forth, to be able to take care of all the different things that they're responsible for, because we don't have the personnel that we need. Hopefully with some of the capital projects that we you all know we've got a lot of grants and different things that we're working on with those big projects. You know, we've got over, I'm gonna say probably over $30 million worth of projects that we're possibly gonna be, you know, starting here soon, and more, that will help us to replace some of these old lines and sewer lines and water lines, and hopefully we'll be able to fix some of this, plus the new automatic meter reader system that we have, be able to help Roger and take those guys that are having to help the meter readers, put them back to doing what they're supposed to be doing, instead of helping with the meters and so forth. So hopefully with all the stuff that we're doing, we're going to be able to free up some of the personnel to be able to do some of the stuff that we need to. Because as you know, we don't have the money right now to be able to get additional staffing that we need.
What we saying is, we gonna do what we can do, the best we can do with what we have. You know, and, but I'm optimistic. Right now, we're just doing the best we can with what we have, what we can pay for. And I just try to keep that mindset. And I realize as an employee, it's real easy to, you know, start thinking negative. From where we sit, we can only, you know, get what we can afford to get.
Any further questions? Moving to the airport. Again, this is a brand new department. Although we did have expenditures in the past because we had the airport, we just managed it, whereas now we're bringing it in-house. So there is a lot of new line items that you're going to see in this budget, but our actual cost, our actual expenditure this last year, 23, was $279,000. Our current estimate for this year is $543,000. And then we're budgeting $700,000 for next year. Salaries, again, we brought it in-house, so that's a new line item. You see it's a $121,000 increase. Social Security, retirement, all those are combined because of the new employees. We have one full-time and two part-time in that department that's in there. Our administrative fee, we talked about that during the revenue, so this is where that money's going out for the administrative fee for the city. You got the maintenance reimbursement, again, we talked about that on the revenue side. This is the expenditure side of those funds. Other professional services, you see a decrease here. If you remember last year, we budgeted our portion of the master plan for the professional services. We are doing, what do you call it?
An airport layout plan with narrative.
Airport layout plan with narrative. I don't know why I can't remember that, but we're doing that instead, and our contribution to that is $15,000? $30,000. And so, and that's being done this year, so we're able to take that $85,000 out of that line item, so you see reduction there. Routine airport maintenance, you see that. This is where we budgeted for fencing this last year, and so we're looking at doing the same thing this year. And this is something that one gets reimbursed through the grant. Facility maintenance, you see a decrease in that one. Property insurance, again, went up on that one. Telephone and internet increased, of course, because mainly because we're providing it out there now. And then seminar and schools, that's a new line item. Credit card fees, a new line item. Aviation fuel, you see that's a new line item. As we're responsible for buying the fuel. Jet fuel, same thing. Hopefully, we'll spend more on jet fuel now that we got it. Again, this is based on the first 2 months of us actually selling jet fuel. Just kind of putting that in there. Hopefully we'll spend more. The good news is the more we spend, the more we're getting back. So hopefully we'll add at least 1 zero to that. Computer equipment, software, again, new line item, plus we're getting some cameras out there. Events, this is something that the airport has been asking. The airport board's been asking for, is for us to start doing some special events out the airport, and so we're budgeting some funds to be able to help with that every year. And then other capital outlay, there's $45,000, that's to put some fencing. So we did the west side of the runway last year. We cleared that fence line and put the fence on. So we're wanting to do basically the rest of that side, budgeting to clear, and then add the fence on that next piece of it. And of course, we're using the ramp grant to pay for that improvement. And so, is that following? Yes. And so, any questions on the airport? Remember, the airport, that money, even though it's part of the general fund, the revenues can only be spent on the airport. So, for example, on the salaries, Dickie did request to have the 2 part-time people go from 19 to 29 hours. We have put, that is in the base budget to increase those because he does have the money available, because the money that he raises or earns can only be spent at the airport. It cannot be spent anywhere else. So he's got a separate fund that's part, even though it's part of the general fund, we've got to keep those separated from everything else.
You said on the project cost for the airport narrative plan 30, correct?
Yes.
So would that need to be marked at 30 on the other professional services instead of 16?
We're actually paying that this year.
Oh, so it's coming out, so 15 is coming from 1 to 15?
No, 15 is coming up, 37 is coming
It's
from
coming
this
from this
year.
year's budget, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so then, the other professional services, anything that we call out there that we have to pay somebody for services out there, that's where that line goes, so.
So, pretty good.
I want to say that's the same line we pay for, like, isn't it ARC and stuff like that comes out of there too for the airport?
Yes.
Which is the water well testing and all that that's out there with the, that's professional services for that testing, and we have to get budgeted there.
Okay.
A1, yeah. All right, moving to the garage, they spent $11,000 in '23. They're projected to spend $24,000, almost $25,000 this year, and they're back down to $11,000, a little over $11,000 for next year. The biggest part of that last year was that we bought the 4-post lift for the garage to be able to do additional maintenance in-house. And so that was a purchase this year, a one-time purchase, and so that's why you see the $15,438 decrease in capital purchase, because that was for the lift last year. Any questions on that one? Moving to the library, they spent just under $500,000 in '23, projected to spend $595,000 this year, and then they're budgeting $572,000 for next year. And on the salaries, you see a decrease, a minimum decrease here. They are getting some adjustments themselves as well, but they did. They had a part-time position at the library that was combined with the facility services, so that department was moved over to facility services as part of that team. And so that's why you see a reduction there. Their insurance, of course, went up as well. You see the in and out for the office supplies, and then you also have the cleaning supplies that was transferred over to facility services, and then your capital outlay. And so there is an increase on the capital outlay. This is also one of the projects that will be coming out of fund balance. And so last year, if you remember, we did the roof, replaced the roof, repaired the roof at the library. What you have here is resurfacing the parking lot, painting the exterior, and then doing some ramp and canopy repairs as well. Any questions on that one? Cemetery and parks. And so in '23 we spent $595,000. They're projected to spend about $775,000 this year, And then we're budgeting for $687,000 for next year. And so there is an increase in salaries based on the longevity pay for the department. Of course, that also increases your group insurance, Social Security, and retirement. Other professional services, there's a decrease in the budget based on what we actually contracted with our current contractor for this year. However, our current contractor has already told us that he's not going to renew it, put it back out for bid. But we don't know if there's actually going to be an increase or a decrease until after we put it out for bid. We'll have to make an adjustment whenever that goes out this next year. Facility maintenance, there's a decrease there based on current trend. There's a decrease in schools and seminars. And then that shouldn't be Christmas decorations. Yeah, that's not Christmas decorations. But if you remember, there's a capital.
Everybody draw lines through there for other capital outlay. Other capital outlay.
Christmas decorations.
Other capital outlay.
So every year we budget a $50,000. We budget $50,000 to go towards park improvements every year. And so if you remember this year, we are in the process of getting Old City Park a new playground. And that'll be starting as soon as the construction is completed with the skate park. So what you see here is the fund stays in this account. And so we're budgeting for next year to do a walking trail and replace the playground equipment over at Sam Wiley Park. That's what you see those funds there for. Not Christmas decorations. Any questions on that? All right, sports park. So we spent $20,000, almost $21,000 in '23. Projected to spend about $17.7 this year, and we're looking at budgeting $31.2 for next year. You'll see there's a $5,000 increase to replace the sprinklers at the municipal park. Any questions on that one? The fire budget, we spent almost $3.6 million in '23. We spent $1.9 million is projected for this year, and then almost $2 million is budgeted for next year. And so you'll see here that the salary increase based on the longevity pay increase, which again takes care of your Social Security, retirement, workers' comp. So then we move down to natural gas. Again, this is one of those situations that we budgeted because we got the new fire station. Wasn't sure what that was going to, how that was going to affect gas. We budgeted high, and so we're doing a decrease of $8,000 to get the more current reflection of current year expenses. Same thing with electricity. And so then we move down to fire truck repair. Our repair cost has gone down. So we've lowered that $10,000 based on current year trends. Facility maintenance, we lowered it as well based on current trend. Insurance on this one, we budgeted last year for an increase at the new fire station. We budgeted higher than what it actually came in at. And so you're seeing that this year we're going to be budgeting it more reflective of this year's cost. Bunker gear and cleaning. And so this is something that they have to replace every so often. I think it's every 3 years.
The bunker gear is cleaning every cost year.
And there's some replacement, I think that's
The
in.
replacement is every 10 years for your replacement. So they have to tough like, you can't win anymore.
So anyway, so this is to replace and to do the cleaning and so forth for the bunker gear. And then capital outlay here, You know, we've got a nice, beautiful tower out at the fire station. However, the radio system was not part of that, so we're budgeting this year to get the radio paving system to be a part of that. Any questions on the fire? All right, emergency management. This is the last one in the general fund. And so this is basically for emergency management services. The fire chief takes on that responsibility and that role. And so you can see here that in 23 we spent roughly 8,500. We're projected to spend 53,000 this year, and then we're budgeting for roughly 32,000 next year.
We know why it's such a high increase.
It was previous year invoices that were not paid for a generator rental or a storm that was supposed to come within, I think it was like 21, 22, and it hadn't been paid.
I was curious.
Any questions on that one? All right, then we're going to move to non-operational. This is 180, 190. And what was?
Yeah, I think that was a sidewalk grant.
Okay. So again, this is one of our funds. There's nothing budgeted in it. There was no expense this year. So that was a grant for previous years. 200, Economic Development Corporation. This is a budget that comes as a recommendation from the EDC. EDC they had, I want to say, 3 budget meetings to go over the budget, and then they had a workshop. They had a public hearing to come up with their recommendation. And so the July meeting, they had a public hearing and then made their recommendation for this budget. And so you can see that in 23, they spent $860,000. Oh, this is the revenue side, huh?
Yes, that's revenue.
This is revenue, so they received 800, or the revenue was 860. We're projected to get almost 900,000 this year, and then next year we're looking at 1.7. Now this, we'll talk about this now in a little bit, but under the sales tax, again, we talked about this earlier. Our sales tax has increased from 800,000 to 333 is our estimate for our revenues. Our interest, again, Pam was doing a good her diligence to get more money out of interest, and so there's a $40,000 increase in the interest. And then we're doing a significant transfer from fund balance into this year's budget. They've got a lot of projects that they want to work on, that they're putting funds into, and so we'll go over those in a little bit. But that's they're planning on using. They got over $2 million in reserves, and they're wanting to use some of that money to do some projects and take care of some different items this next year. So we'll go over that in a minute. Any questions on the revenue side? Okay, going a couple pages back on the expenditure side, you can see that in 23 we spent $430,000. This year we're projected to spend $765,000, and then we're budgeting to spend almost $1.7 million next year for those projects. And so you see on the bottom of the page the different items there. Group insurance increased based on the employee election or selection of the insurance. Social Security decreased, and then retirement contribution decreased. You see that again, we talked about this on the revenue side, that the contribution from EDC to the city, that decreased by $1,000 a month for the office space that was being rented here at City Hall. Professional services, that is increasing by $27,500. This is pertaining to consulting services to develop an economic development strategy. And then the industrial park maintenance, this is being zeroed out. This was the ARC expenditures and the expenditures for the water well and so forth that EDC was paying for out of the airport, and now we're reallocating those funds to the appropriate departments. Then you have a line item for real property, and of course this is a new line item that's being requested. And basically this is setting aside $300,000 to be able to purchase property if some come available, or if we find some property that we need to strategically purchase, to be able to work with somebody to be able to purchase that property for the EDC. And so we've got some funds there allocated for it. If it's more than that, we have to do some other process, but at least he's got some to be able to move quickly if needed on property. The next item is promotional marketing. That's increasing in that by, again, marketing, they're allowed to spend 10% of whatever the revenue brings in, and so they were budgeted to spend $80,000 for marketing when the sales tax was $800,000. Now that's $833,000. Then we're able to budget $83,000 for marketing. So it's just 10% of whatever the revenue is. Allies Day has been budgeted at $10,000. They're removing that and using that money in other locations. Website development, that was $10,000 budgeted last year. This year it's gone down to $6,000, and that's to pay for Civic Plus, and they want to do some upgrades through that with our current provider. But to work with Civic Plus to do some upgrades. We actually had not the very highest, but we're next to the highest level on the website with that, and so it does a whole lot more than what we utilize it for, but to be able to use it and to do some upgrades on that, that's what that's for. Travel mills, training increased as well for educational training for Emilio and Danielle. As well as maybe possibly some tuition reimbursement. Danielle says she's going to school next year.
I started August 25th of this year.
So reimbursement we have an education reimbursement program, so funding available for that.
Use it.
Oh yeah.
You got to learn grades to get it.
There are requirements that have to be fulfilled. Won't pass the flying colors.
And then we've got a new line item, planning target analysis, $45,000, and this is to hire a consultant to help us with retail recruitment and attraction services, to do a plan and to help us attract new businesses and new industries to EDC or to the city. Now this is holiday decorations. They are budgeting $50,000 to do some decorations throughout the city. So that's on there. Office equipment, there's a reduction based on a current year estimate or expenditures. City facilities, parks, beautification improvements, this is a new line item. They're budgeting $100,000, basically to be able to do facility and park improvements throughout the city. So an example of this, they had done the pavilion last year. They're working on right now, they're looking at doing the fence around the grass area at the library, and then they want to do shade structures over at the library. And so they added this budget to be able to do those kind of things in the years. And so you can see here the shade structure here for the library. And then pavilion and playground possibly, or fence and playground possibly for the pavilion. Then you've got projects. We just budgeted for a general project line item in the past, and so we'll eliminate that, move that money around. Downtown murals, public art, and so we had a line item for murals. We are now basically doing downtown murals and public art, kind of combining that. And so there's a decrease in that. And then Stansel Park improvements. And this is a budget here, and so one of the things that's been coming up with the EDC is there's a huge need for renovating and bringing Stansel Park up to the arenas out there, bad shape. A lot of the area out there needs some major upgrades, but the idea is what's the best use and what's the best things for that. And so they're budgeting $70,000. This is to basically do a master plan. So this will get our consultant to come in, review, see what the best plan is for that, so that we can go back and look and make the improvements in the future. But for this year, it's just to get the study done to kind of help us determine where is the best location, for an arena, for the parking lots, for the barbecue pits, for the pins or so forth. I mean, we talked about different aspects and different things. They want more stuff, but how do we get all it on there? What's the best resources, the best location for that? So that's what that's for, is to do that study. Then to purchase a GIS platform, it's $25,000. And then there's an increase of $70,000 for demo and clearing for new housing. So basically, again, going back to demolition and trying to remove some of the blight that we have on the commercial side of the city, and so we've increased that fund. As you know, we had one come in this year that we were able to successfully get torn down. And so we had $30,000 budgeted, but that one was going to be over $100,000 to get done. And so we've increased that so that we could be able to, if something comes in there, we have to pay for it, then the money's there available for us to do that. On the next page, incentives. This is $25,000 has been budgeted in the past. They're increasing that to $200,000. And this is the having some funds available for recruitment, attraction, to be able to provide some kind of incentive to recruit people to the city. Then you all are familiar with the facade grant that we've had in the past. That is being converted over to a business improvement grant. And then they're wanting to go from $10,000 to $150,000 to do that. But instead of just being just a facade and just being landscaping, they want to do a more comprehensive, having criteria set for different areas, but then also to make it a larger contribution so we get more participation. Before it was $5,000 maximum, $7,500 maximum. And I mean, when you're doing a sign improvement and the sign costs you $40,000, $5,000 really isn't going to give you an incentive to go out and do it. But if you can get $20,000 of the $40,000, that may be something to do it. Or your landscaping, if you're going to spend $200,000 to do a facade improvement or do some landscaping in your area, and $5,000 is what you get, that's not as much of an incentive. But if you can get $50,000 to go towards that, that may be worth investing. And so it goes back to the idea that we've got to invest. We want to have the beautification, we want the downtown, we want the city to improve, but we've got to be willing to put money in the game to be able to help that. So this is our incentive program to visit it. So that's why they've increased this program. It's something that they're going to be working on. It's not been developed yet, but something they're going to be working as a board to kind of fine tune that business program to be able to put it out in October for the business to be able to start applying for it. And then of course you see our interest payment on the bond that we have. This is for the sports complex. So that payment actually went down this year, but that's the payment for the bond. Any questions on EDC? Moving on, love to answer questions.
EDC board gave you the recommendation to approve it,
All right, water and sewer fund, 300. You'll see here, this is the revenues, the first page. So we actually received 8.2 million in 23. We're projected to receive 5.2 this year, and then our proposed budget is 5.7, almost 5.8 million for next year. And so you see there's a big significant change in those. A lot of that is in your non-operation side of it, and we'll discuss that. But under water charges, again, last year we did a 10% rate increase, and so based on what we're seeing on that, we're estimating about a $532,000 increase. Sewer charges, again, a 10% rate increase, brought about $378,000. Wastewater revenue, this is a Union Tank Car. We've done some improvements out there, and they've changed kind of the way that they operate and what they're doing. And so there's a significant decrease in what they're actually paying for their water out there at this time because of the different use that we're seeing. Non-payment fee based on current trends, we're seeing an increase there. Late charges, again, increased by 10,000 because of current trend. Interest income, again, they're doing a great job, $95,000 increase there. Meter installation, there's an increase based on current trends of 12,000. Water taps, there's a decrease in that one because of current trends, and there's an $8,000 decrease in sewer taps. There's a $4,000 decrease in street cuts, and then waste management fee. There's that's their contract that we have with waste management, so that contract is ended, so that's going down to zero. And of course, Frontier Waste is replacing that, and you see the 150,000 up below that. And then garbage pickup revenue is decreasing. A lot of that's because, if you remember, we approved a lower rate for our garbage, which is a positive for our customers, but it's a decrease in our revenues that we see. And then the additional garbage carts, you see an increase in those rates. And then you see a fund balance transfer in for specific projects. You see that it's an additional $133,000. And this is the fund is balanced to pay for impact fees, the SCADA software upgrade, the Texas Water Development Board application. Now that we've moved forward on that program, we were able to get those loans for the drinking water and clean water. Our next step, which we'll have on a council meeting next Tuesday, is to go out to get engineering and administration, an RFQ for those, and so we're budgeting for that. And then also doing an East Plant clean out is also in this line item transfer. Any questions on these revenues? All right, the next section is the water and sewer fund. This is water administration. You see here that we spent $665,000 in 23. We're projected to spend $565,000 this year, and we're budgeting $575,000 for next year. Our salaries increased. We talked about that. And so you're going to see group insurance as well increase because of the longevity, or the group insurance because of the employees' election. Credit card fees increased. That's the new credit card rates. And then postage, of course, has gone up as well. So you see the reflection there for those line items. Any questions on water administration? Water production, we spent $1.8 million in 23. We're projected to spend 1.4 million this year, and we're budgeting 1.5 for next year. You see salaries increased, overtime actually decreased based on current trend. Group insurance increased because of the employees' election. Retirement contribution went down based on the TMRS rate. And then legal increase, again, this is, we're now trying to budget for legal services within the departments that are using them. Engineering and surveying, you see $75,000 here. And so you'll see, this is on the water side, the sewer side, you'll see $75,000. The estimate that we have for the engineering and the grant or the loan administration is about $150,000 to get us through the next part of those, the drinking water, clean water, so that's what that's for. Other professional services, there's an increase. Basically, Arkin Environmental doing the environmental testing that we have to do, and it also includes the remaining portion of the impact study. And then electricity has an increase, facility maintenance, we have an increase there. One of them that you see is the SCADA upgrade, and so we talked about that on the revenue side. So we're going to be replacing the SCADA system. Property liability insurance has gone up. Gasoline and diesel actually went down based on current trends. Lab fees and chemicals went up. They basically doubled this last year. Meter expenses, we are actually budgeting to decrease this as we are replacing all of our meters with our automatic meter system. We shouldn't have to replace any, or very many, so that number went down. And then transfer out the technology. This is for water production percentage or a portion of the Blue Water contracted expenditures, and so that's that contribution. And then we have our lease payment that will be coming up this year for our Amoresco project. And so this is a new line item, but that's going to be our payment for this year. And I believe that's interest only, right? This year we're only responsible for the interest portion of it. Any questions on water production? I'll go to the next one, the wastewater. We spent $1.1 million in '23. We're projected to spend $1.3 million this year, and then we're budgeting for just under $1.6 million next year. Group insurance went down, and then retirement contribution went down. Based on the TMRS rate. Engineering and surveying, that's the other portion of that administration for the clean water and drinking water. Other professional services, that one went up. And this is to repair equipment in the lift stations that needs to be done. And then facility maintenance, we increased that line item by $25,000 to clean out the grease and grit chamber at the East plant. Sludge removal has increased, and so you see that there. Property insurance, another significant 30% increase on that for the different wastewater facilities. Plus, I think that added Pinewood Trails, is that correct? This year. License expense increased. Of course, then you see the increase because we have to do some TCQ permitting for that new Pinewood Trails system. Other operating supplies was decreased some for the facility services, but then also the current trend. And then lab fees and chemicals, that's increased based on current trend. And then we've got a transfer out to technology again for their portion of the Blue Line contract. Any questions on those? Okay, I will tell you that Roger requested a whole lot of projects in water and sewer, but because of the clean water and the drinking water, that we're gonna be able to get. A lot of those projects that need to be done are gonna be able to be covered in that, so we were able to take those and not fund them, at this time because of those two, programs should be paying for those improvements. So that's a huge blessing, for us as well to have those grants coming our way. On solid waste, you'll see that, this is the revenues.
No, that's the expense for what we charge this is what we pay Frontier for picking up the garbage. The customers pay what us, we pay the Frontier.
Okay, so this is the paying them solid waste. So it was 410 that we paid waste management in 23. We're looking at spending roughly 435,000 this year, and we're budgeting to spend 400,000 next year. So there's a savings because of our contract reduced this year when we went to Frontier Waste. And then you've got the next one is this is our transfer from water sewer to the general fund. So last year we budgeted basically 1.2 million to be transferred to the general fund. The balance this year we're looking at 1.6 million to do that transfer. Any questions on any of those? Okay. Going to Fund 500. This is our TERS. And so the first page here.
This is 500, TERS is 501 and 502.
Oh, okay.
It's further back. The TERS don't have the blue sheet. They just have the budget.
Okay, so that's what, but there's TERS on this blue sheet.
Oh, that's because we're putting TERS in debt service. The payment.
Okay.
That makes sense?
All right, so Fund 500, this is your debt service payments. And so property taxes, last year we brought in 1.6. This year we're projected to bring in 1.8, and then again we're proposing 1.8 for this budget year, which is just over $2 million when you add the interest and non-operating. And then you go down the items down below, current taxes. And so we budgeted last year 1.9 million to collect. This year we're budgeting 2.5 million, so that's a $500,000 increase, which includes the TERS payments, which is the next two line items. You can see those included in here. The delinquent taxes, based on our current trend, we're budgeting 45,000 instead of 35. Our P&I attorney fees are increasing by 18,000. Fund balance transfer. We're estimating so we receive, or we have funds in our debt service that we've collected that can only be used on debt. So this is using some of that fund balance to make those payments. And so that's utilizing, again, some of that leftover money. The tax bond retirement, there's an increase in that bond payment this year. The interest is actually lower this year, and then our fiscal agent fee has actually been lower or decreased this year as well. Any questions on that one? All right. Next one, hotel motel. This is Fund 600. The revenues on this one, we are 23. We received just under 300,000. We're projected to receive about 262,000 this year, and we're budgeting 264,000 next year. The changes that you see there, they're significant. It's Motel 6. There actually is about an $8,000 increase based on the current trend. And then we see about a $30,000 decrease based on the current trend to Holiday Inn.
No, these are the ones that.
These are the ones that
have more than
significant changes. So the
2,000.
next page, you'll see, you can see you got Super 8, Motel 6, M&M, Deluxe Inn, Best Western, Holiday Inn, and La Quinta. Those are all listed in the, on there.
Really, don't talk about my number.
All right, if you turn, so the next page gives you all the list of all the hotels and revenues. And then the following pages, you'll see the blue page for the expenditures. And so we spent about $57,000 in '23. Projected to spend about $66,000 this year, and then we're budgeting $65,000 for next year. Your significant changes there are your advertising and billboards. There's about a 50% decrease there based on trends, and in your music and arts, there's a significant decrease in that as well. And then the CVB, the next page, you can see we spent $154,000 in '23. Projected to spend about $170,000 this year, and we're budgeting $177,000 for next year. And so, and this one does include salaries, and so there's a reduction here. Again, the salaries for the CVB is basically your civic center employees, and so since some of the civic center employees were moved to facility services, you see the reduction here for those as well. And then FICA and Medicare, it looks like there was a increase because of the incorrect amount was entered for the fiscal year budget for last year. The Blue Iron contract is being increased, their allocation is being increased, and then advertising is being decreased to reflect current trend. That's everything for hotel motel. Any questions on that? All right, capital equipment. All right, so again, this is the revenue side, 701. And so you see this year, or in '23, we received $229,000. We're projected to receive $235,000 this year, and we're budgeting $240,000 for next year. Your significant change is identified down below. That's your interest rates, increase in the interest rates. The next page is your expenditures for the 701 fund. So this is your capital outlay projects. We spent $38,000 in '23. We're projected to spend about $343,000 this year, and then we're budgeting $117,000 for next year. You'll see down at the bottom, equipment purchases. There's a significant decrease, about $118,000. But this year, we're basically budgeting to buy 2 zero-ton mowers with those funds for equipment. And then if you look at the vehicle purchase, there's a decrease there from what was budgeted this year. But he's buying two trucks for water and sewer department. We are leaving quite a bit of money in this fund this year, but the reason is he's wanting to build that fund up because he's got some big toys that he wants to pay for, and he needs a lot of money, so he's trying to build that up. So he's buying some equipment this year, some trucks this year, but we're saving some money so we can build this up. So some of the next equipment that he needs to be purchasing are high dollar equipment, and so we're saving that money for future years. Any questions on that one? All right, going to 900. And so this is a special revenue account. This is for the police department, it's their seizures, and so forth. You can see here that we spent, or received about $11,000, or we received $11,000 in '23, and then we spent about $82,000, and then this year, we're projecting to spend, or receive about $4,700 and spend about $6,400. And then we're not budgeting to receive or spend any money for next year at this time. And this is money that, like, when they seize equipment and stuff like that, they're able to use that money to purchase stuff. So that money those revenues go into this account, and they can use it for specific stuff that these funds are allowed to be used for. And then the next one is 915. This is court technology. As you can see here, we didn't spend anything in '23. We're not projecting to spend anything this year or receive anything, and then we're not receiving or budgeting for next year. And so, again, this is a court technology over the court fund that they have. And then you got a court security fund as well. And so, again, we're not budgeting for anything this year to receive or to spend anything this year in court technology or court security. And then the last tab, we're not going to go through everything here, but again, this is the personnel. But we do provide you with a list of all the positions that were requested for reclassification or new positions. You can see what the current position is, the proposed position, what the hourly rates are, their salaries, and then what the difference would be. And what you can see, like on the first one, you got an HR administrative assistant. That would be Felicity's position. And they're proposing to make that a payroll HR administrator position, a full-time position, because she's only part-time. And so you see the difference there is $19,648. And so that is just a salary amount that does not include the benefits. So when you look down here and see the $253,000 at the bottom, that is just the salary difference. It doesn't include the benefits or anything like that. So that would be an additional cost on top of that. If these positions were done. And so that's kind of the summary of everything based on the department, what different positions were asked for. And then behind it, you'll see the request for the different positions and then the job description that was prepared for each of those positions for the reclassifications. And so that is everything in the budget. Again, this is based on our current best guesstimate on what our revenues are going to be, what the tax rate is going to be. And so hopefully we will be getting that new tax rate here this week from the county. If not, hopefully first part of next week, so we can kind of determine what that's going to be. And so we are scheduled to have our budget hearing for the public next week. And so that'll be Tuesday night during our council meeting. And then we will have a budget workshop as well. We will have a first reading of our EDC projects and budget. It'll be the second one on September 17th. But this is it. And again, this time, now that you've heard everything, you've seen it all, you've got all the information. We just kind of hit the highlights. Everything is in here for you to see, ask questions if you have any. You've got the information now reviewed. If you have some questions, get with Pam or I. We'd be more than happy to try to give you an answer or find it for you. And then again, also just, if you have some ideas, if we have additional revenue coming because of that, we talked about it earlier. There's a couple of things that we've got that we can put that money towards, either minimizing that transfer from water sewer to the general fund, We've got frozen positions that we could move that money towards on freezing. We've got new positions and reclassifications that we could put that money towards. And then we've also got supplements in here that are not funded, whether it's equipment or computer, software, different things that we also can do. Does anybody have any thoughts on what they think a priority should be? If we had additional funding, should we put it towards the frozen positions, put it to the transfer, to the new positions, or reclassifications?
New positions.
New positions and reclassifications? Okay.
So those, everyone, personnel and need help, don't be.
You know, and there's, like I said, there's several of them in there, so we need more.
Salaries.
Again, inside the budget, we've got all the longevity, all those adjustments, that's our last step for the implementation is in here. And then we've got the compensation study that's in here, included in here as well, to be able to get that done for next year. To help, hopefully, we can then fine tune and adjust all the salaries. This will get us to where we should have been in 2020. Now we need to move forward, so.
Well, you know, we just, you know, have to come to a, you know, a consensus, you know, on what we want to do. And let's just have a clear conscience that we're going to do the best we can do for everybody. I mean, that's the way I look at it. We got to do it for all 130. You know, not just 10 or 15, but, you know, we got to do the best we can for everybody. You know, and it started with Scott, you know, all the way down.
Well, that's a good point, Mayor. I mean, in here, the adjustments are in here for everybody. Okay? We looked at everybody, so yes, I'm in here, my position, longevity's in here, everybody's position is in here, so, I mean, it's all, those adjustments are within this budget, and that's where you see that. It's for every employee, not just one or two or any specific, it's for everybody. We looked at everybody, we went through the numbers, we had all the department heads bring everything to us, their years of experience, what's required for their position. When we did the whole formula, put them through the matrix, and then matched them up where they need to be within there. Like I said earlier, if it's a long term and it was beyond step 10, we maxed it out at step 10. But a lot of those people are towards the bottom, you know. I mean, for example, we got one police chief sitting in here that was moved to the minimal a year or two ago when we made those adjustments, and so he's a long-time employee that's sitting at the bottom of his pay grade, so that's going to be making that adjustment. That's in the budget, okay?
Correct.
So those adjustments are in here.
Well, I just want to thank everybody. You know, I know we've been in here for a long time. We might have a couple of these out of the year, but, you know, this is something we got to do, and maybe Tuesday probably, maybe not this long, might be longer, I don't know, but we just have to, you know, make that sacrifice. And once we get over this hurdle with the budget, then we'll kind of get back to normal. But once again, thank Scott. And I really thank all the department heads, you know, and just to vibe and get everybody's on the same page, you know, and that makes me sleep good at night, you know, everybody's on the same page. So.